Do you think podcasting is only for business owners who are trying to sell something? Think again. Welcome today to Empowered Endeavors, the podcast where business strategy and purpose come together to turn your passion into a platform and ideas into influence to create real impact in the world. I am your host, Shaunna Lee, best-selling author of So You're Divorced, So What, and business strategy consultant for executive thought leaders, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, and aspiring storytellers. Together, here on this show, we are transforming burned-out professionals into purpose-driven powerhouses. So listen, when it comes to podcasting, it can be done in a non-business way, and I have an excellent example for you. One of my friends and previous guests on this show, Mary, is a therapist, and she is in a book club with fellow therapists, and they started a podcast called What is My Therapist Reading? They realized that their clients might think it's interesting to know what books they're reading, and they meet regularly to discuss the book that they're reading and all of their thoughts in their book club on their podcast. Excellent example of a podcast that is not for an entrepreneur. So in today's episode, we are going to dive into some more examples of that, but specifically, who is podcasting for? What are the unique benefits outside of running a business, and why you should start a podcast today? So first, there is this misconception, I think, that podcasting is only for entrepreneurs. And it makes sense, honestly, when you think about it, on why we think that, because you see so many examples like the Mel Robbins show or the Joe Rogan Experience. And we see all of these really famous entrepreneurs who have a podcast. And I think often that is another reason why people think that podcasting is going to be the end-all be-all way that they are going to create a new income that will replace their 9-to-5 salary. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to naming your show, the reason Mel Robbins can call it the Mel Robbins Show is because she's built a name for herself and her name stands for something. But there are so many ways that podcasting can be used outside of that example. And so let's dive into some of that today. So here's the thing. Podcasting is really about storytelling. It can be an amazing mechanism for education, and it is a powerful connection tool that anyone can use. So we see all sorts of examples, if we look hard enough, around how podcasting can be done in multiple different categories. So you've got true crime, you've got entertainment or documentaries. The ability for a podcast to tell a story has been hugely successful in the true crimes arena. And then if you want to just talk about the ability to connect on kind of some mundane topics, the Real Housewives as an example, you've got things that are happening in pop culture that people have created podcasts around. Because the truth is, many of the most successful podcasts are not business driven at all. You've got history, sports, books. There's all these different ways that people are utilizing podcasts as a platform to share ideas and to connect with people. So who is podcasting really for? It is really for anyone who wants to share knowledge or insights or create a connection with people who share the same interests. So one of my favorite examples is around educators and teachers specifically, and how they can utilize podcasting as a way to share their knowledge beyond the classroom. It's a way for them to expand upon their lesson plans and provide insights. I love the idea of a teacher creating a podcast as an additional resource to the parents of her students or his students, and being able to create a tool or a resource that those parents can then use to better prepare their kids for being a student in the classroom. When you think about the creative types or the artists that you know. There are musicians and writers and filmmakers that are utilizing podcast as a way to expand their audience, as a way to share about their creative process and to share about their craft and being able to utilize podcasting as a way for those creatives is kind of unexpected, I think, for a lot of people if you're only thinking that podcasting is for business owners. Another really great category of people who are utilizing podcast as a way to spread awareness or to drive positive change in the world is activists and nonprofits. One of the most powerful aspects of a nonprofit is storytelling and being able to spread awareness on your message and your cause is kind of step one. But the storytelling of the people that your nonprofit, the lives that it touches, that's the powerful aspect of podcasting. It gives you the ability to share your story and also a capturing mechanism for donations. It helps you fund your nonprofit by spreading awareness and telling the story of the people whose lives you're impacting. When I think about hobbyists and enthusiasts, I instantly think about my own personal hobbies and also the things that I've been most passionate about. So if you think about mindfulness or mental health, each one of these categories of kind of topics that people are interested in, an entire podcast can be created around mindfulness. But when I think about hobbies, for me, myself specifically, I'm thinking about the things that I like to do, like, dabbling in painting or knitting. Super passionate about knitting. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And I realized recently it is a favorite hobby of mine because it gives me a mechanism to relax and calm my nervous system while also feeling as if I'm being productive. And so it was one of my very first introductions into mindfulness and calming my nervous system in a way that just felt like I was making something pretty. But it has become a hobby that means a lot to me. And there are no limits to the ways that you could use podcasting to talk about knitting. And if you don't believe me, go search on your favorite podcast platform for knitting podcasts, and you will find more than you thought existed. But when it comes to hobbies or things that you're enthusiastic about, you've got sports or gaming or book clubs. Pop culture deep dives into some really specific nuances of all sorts of random topics. And each one of those can be a category of podcasts. And when it comes to the healthcare industry or wellness professionals, we're seeing a lot of podcasts pop up around mental health and mindfulness, but also fitness and new healthy lifestyles and different aspects of helping people to live the healthiest life possible. Now, an unexpected category of podcasts that you might not consider is how corporate professionals and industry experts are utilizing podcasting to provide thought leadership and professional insights around very specific categories in their industry. One of the communities that I am a part of is around podcasting. And one of the guys that was in the podcast group with me is creating a show around accounting. And it is specific to the accounting professionals and providing insights in that arena, in that industry. So perhaps not a podcast I would be listening to, but for an accounting professional would be one that they would be interested in. And so here's the takeaway from all of these different categories of who podcasting is really for. It comes down to the fact that everybody has a story to tell and everyone has interests that is different than somebody else. And being able to connect with those people who have that shared interest is who podcasting is for. Everyone has life experiences. Everyone has a story to tell, and the ability to grow from that sharing of the stories is what is highlighted with podcasting. So what I wanted to address next for you guys is these unexpected benefits of podcasting. So, when I started this show and it was called Start Again with Shaunna Lee, it was all about kind of figuring out what my business was going to be. And it was all about empowering voices. It was about these start again moments and kind of highlighting for you all the different ways that people have done things later in life. And, when they were too scared to make the leap and they did it anyways. And so it started out as that mission, and it evolved over time to where we are today as Empowered Endeavors. It's all about empowering your next chapter with purpose so that you can live the most fulfilled life. And what I didn't expect were some of these benefits. So, one, the creative expression that is possible with podcasting was surprising to me. Creativity is not always about creating art necessarily, but it's about solving problems and choosing new ways to view the world and being able to express that creativity. Podcasting gives you that platform to do just that. It gives you your own space to explore whatever topics you love. And that creative expression is what I think humans are intended to do. And podcasting gives you the ability to do that in whatever way you want, which is amazing. And one of the other benefits of podcasting that I did not at all anticipate was this idea of building a community. So it's not necessarily about creating the community, but it was about building that as I went along. So being able to find like-minded people who share your interests is the crux of how you make friends as an adult. And if you are a fellow adult listening and you've struggled to make friends, I will tell you that podcasting is a great way to meet new people. And it's a great way to meet new people who have the same interests that you do. So sometimes we feel like we're the only person in the world who likes to read the books we like to read or have the hobbies we have. I talked about knitting as my hobby. But if you're a man who knits, and there are men out there who knit and crochet because they are in the groups I'm in on Facebook, connecting with other men who like to knit can be difficult, but you can find them through podcasting. So one of the guys that I follow on Instagram, he just recently went on a retreat for men who knit. And all they did was go shop for yarn and knit all weekend long. They went up to the mountains. They were in the snow. It looked like a fabulous vacation to me. And it was all about men who knit. I would not have thought, if you told me 5 years ago that there was a retreat for male knitters, that would be a thing. Here's what I will tell you. Podcasting opens the doors to meet new people and to build the community of your people. And when we expand upon that a little bit more, the networking and the opportunities that are created by podcasting has been one of those benefits I also did not expect. You're able to meet new people who have the same interests in you and are talking about the same things that are important to you. But I didn't necessarily realize that I was going to be able to connect with people that would create opportunities and open doors to new workshops or new opportunities for my business in ways that I didn't expect. So I have had guests on my show who we are partnering together on workshops, and she lives in Australia, as an example. I would have never met her had it not been for her being a guest on my show. And so being able to create those opportunities is one of those benefits that comes from podcasting, simply from having guests on your show or being a guest on someone else's show. And lastly, I think one of the really important benefits that is not surprising, but is one to highlight is this idea of building a legacy and leaving a lasting impact on the world. Podcasting gives us the ability to have this ripple effect to positivity and love and expansion. It allows you to build something that leaves a lasting positive impact on the world. It lets you leave the world a better place than you found it. It's one of the things that I am most passionate about, is kind of living the Girl Scout way, which is leave it better than you found it. And podcasting allows you to do just that. It allows you to leave behind stories and share wisdom and ideas that last beyond you. So the final thing I want to share today is why now is the best time for you to start your podcast. The thing about podcasting today is that it's more accessible than it's ever been. You don't need fancy equipment, as you've heard me say. You don't need a huge audience in order to have a successful podcast. The way that we have access to information through social media, all of the AI tools and the technology that exists today make podcasting now easier than it's ever been. It makes it easier to start. It makes it easier to maintain, and less of a time commitment than it's been in the past, and less of a technology leap to make than it was just several years ago. So you don't have to be a professional or have something to sell. You don't have to have a business that you've created or want to even create a business. All you have to do is create your platform. When you create a podcast, it allows you to build credibility, and it allows you to become the expert in your field. You get to be the leader in your industry. All you have to have is a passion and a message in order to have a successful podcast. And the thing about it is, authenticity is innately attractive. It is what attracts people to your show, is you being passionate and authentically who you are. And the last thing I'll say is that podcasting is growing. There is still room for new voices and new perspectives, and it's not going anywhere. So if you have had the urge or the whisper or the inkling to start a podcast, you have a message to share. So I would say, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast, but you held back because you thought, well, I'm not a business owner, this is your sign to go for it. So be sure to subscribe so that you can follow along on the rest of this podcast series. But if you are ready to launch your podcast and you need a clear plan and you'd like my help, then you can go download the Pod Launch Toolkit. Listen, it's the ultimate starter kit for beginners. It is everything that you need to start your podcast in under 30 days. You can get it at shaunalee.com/podlaunchtoolkit. You can also get the link in the show notes and the description below. But I am so grateful that you guys joined me. Thank you for being here. Next time, I will be interviewing Sharon Seberg in an episode on community that you won't want to miss. But for today, remember, your story matters and the world needs to hear it. So let's build something extraordinary together. Until next time, friends.